Hi everyone, it is Vlogoween Day 8, and today I am doing a Top 5 Wednesday. I haven't done a Top 5 Wednesday for a while. This topic is books that are set in a different country or have a character from a different country other than your own. So I live in the United States, so obviously I would not pick any books set in the United States. The first book that I have here is, I have no idea how I'm actually supposed to pronounce it. I think it's Serena, but it could also be Serena, but I would think there would be two N's if it was Serena. Because, Siren, so maybe Sirena? But I think it's Serena. Anyways, I read this a long time ago. I remember liking it. I don't remember all the details about it because it's been a few years since I read it. This was one that captured my attention because of the cover. That happens a lot, but I don't buy books solely based on the cover. So if I like it, I will read the back, and if it sounds interesting, I'll get it, because a lot of the books I used to get from thrift stores. So if I didn't like it, it wasn't no big deal because I didn't spend a whole lot of money. But this one I do remember liking. I really need to get back to it though. Reread it. Anyways, this is about Serena, who is a mermaid, and mermaids, basically, they don't have souls. They need to fall in love with a mortal man to become immortal. They need to fall in love with a human. So it's kind of a spin on The Little Mermaid. If you know anything about the original short story, The Little Mermaid, it was very different from the Disney story in why the Little Mermaid, or as they call her in the movie, Ariel, wanted to become human. In the original story, it is because unless she makes somebody fall in love with her, she will not gain a soul. And so this is kind of, like I said, a little bit of a twist on that. And this is set actually in ancient Greece. And it's during the Trojan War. So, yeah, interesting book. Like I said, I wish I knew, or I wish I remembered a little bit more about it, but it is what it is. I'll reread it at some point. Next is Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine. Um, this one was an interesting book. It had an interesting character. It had its sad moments. It had its funny moments. It's basically about a woman named Eleanor, who is, I guess you would say, kind of awkward. She doesn't really get social cues. She's not really good with socializing. She's a little different, and she's just trying to live her life, and then things happen, and there's a pretty bad secret that's revealed. Kind of sad. I enjoyed this book. I want to reread it. I have not found anything else by the author, but I really wanted to see if there was something else by her, but so far nothing, because I really enjoyed the writing style in this and the characters and everything. Uh, but yeah, it was pretty good. And if I remember correctly, it takes place in Scotland. Next is Battle Royale. So I read Battle Royale because I kept hearing that the Hunger Games ripped it off. Battle Royale came out first, and yeah, the Hunger Games was just a ripoff. Honestly, the only thing they have in common is the fighting to the death thing, and that it's most of the characters are like teenagers and stuff. But beyond that, it's pretty much different. I would say the Hunger Games are maybe more political, that's not to say that Battle Royale is only death and fighting and stuff like that. And cause I always hate when people say, well, Battle Royale is bloodier and this and that. And technically, yes, it very much is. But there's so much more to the story than that. And I don't know. I think people kind of do it a disservice by just pointing out the violence and everything when they're just trying to make it sound edgier than the Hunger Games. So, unlike the Hunger Games, which takes place in a futuristic North America, Battle Royale is actually about Japan in an alternate timeline, and it's part of like an Eastern Asian, um, I forget what they call it, but yeah, kind of like I think maybe United Countries or something like that. But anyways, basically they put these kids to sleep, right? Like this bus full of kids, they knock them out and they take them to like another island, and basically they tell them that they have to kill each other off until there's one left. And if there isn't a person by the end of like 3 days that wins, um everybody dies basically. So if there's like a group of people left, they're all gonna die if um you know they don't kill each other first. It's a good book. It has a lot of characters, um, so it can be a little hard to follow at times. But yeah, you get to know a little bit about some of the characters and stuff. Not like all of them because there's like 42 kids. There's some that are more specific in their details than others, about their lives and everything. But yeah, I just really hate it when people compare the two books because they are so different, and it just they're both great in their own ways. And I just hate that people reduce Battle Royale to just the violence and not the actual story that's going on. So number 2 is one of the more slower stories, I would say. Kind of like on the same level as Eleanor Elephant is Completely Fine. But this one is very interesting. It is told in dual perspective, and it just kind of feels like almost like watching a vlog in a way because they're told in first person. So that's just it just kind of feels like that. It kind of feels like you're watching somebody talk about their lives and everything, telling you about what's going on. So this is set in France, and wait, oh yeah, okay, I mentioned Battle Royale, it being from Japan. I almost forgot that. Anyways, yeah, Elegance of the Hedgehog is set in France, and it is about a apartment manager, or a concierge as she's also called, named Renee. And I guess, or from what it shows in the book, is that people don't expect her to have any interest in things that people would consider to be intellectual topics, right? Because she's into like literature, philosophy, stuff like that, right? And on the outside, she looks like the typical, I guess, apartment manager, right? She's older, kind of overweight. She doesn't look like the rich people that live in her building, the people that you would expect to be into art and philosophy and stuff, right? So basically, what it's saying is that I guess people's intellect is basically maybe based upon their appearance and maybe their class. Um, I don't know how much of a problem that is in the country of France, but it's kind of portrayed that way. And the other perspective is of Paloma, who is a 12-year-old girl who is kind of fed up with the, wealthy adults around her life. Again, she's kind of expected to be something that she's not, right? She's smart, and, people just want her to be like a kid that basically, shuts up. And so she um, plans to end it basically on her 13th birthday. I think in the movie, and it was kind of hard to follow because I had to read subtitles because unfortunately it did not have a dubbed version. I think in the movie they changed it. I think she's 11 going on 12, which whatever. I don't know why they changed details like that, but it is what it is. It's not really something that changes the story too much. Um, but yeah, it was a very interesting story. I really loved the writing style. I loved the voices of the characters. The movie, from what I remember, is pretty faithful adaptation. Again, it was kind of hard to follow some things because um, I was reading it because I don't understand French. But anyways, it really is a good book, and the movie was pretty decent, I'd say. Then finally we have Cinder. So this one is written by an American author, but it is set in China. Some of the other books, like Scarlet, I know some of it takes place in France, so they kind of move about in this series. There's also a colony or like a civilization on the moon, if you want to count that one too. So, I Cinder, or if you just really want to count the entire Lunar Chronicles, yeah, they take place in different places, but it starts out in New Beijing, China. And this is a twist on Cinderella. All of them are like slight sci-fi twist on fairy tales, and they're all connected. It's a continuing story. And this is about a girl named Cinder who is a cyborg. So she was in an accident when she was younger, and she basically has no memory of what happened. And in order to save her, she has like these robotic parts basically. And in this society, they're kind of looked down upon because it's like, you were saved by getting these parts, now you owe society and everything. So they're basically treated like second class citizens. And unlike the typical Cinderella story where, um, Cinderella, her father marries a woman and then he dies, and the stepmom is mean to her, Cinder was adopted by her father and brought into the house, and there's like this disease infection going around. And when the father dies, the stepmother, which she calls, or actually it's her adopted mother, not even her stepmother, because the father wasn't her biological father, but they call it her stepmother. I think maybe that's because of the original Cinderella, but it technically didn't make sense in the story, but I'm rambling. Anyways, the adopted, or the adoptive or stepmother, basically doesn't like her because she kind of blames her for the husband contracting the sickness and everything. And Cinder works as a mechanic, and then she ends up meeting the prince, and other stuff happens. There's an evil moon queen, and some other things going on. So yeah, you have a second class cyborg um girl who was basically verbally, abused and mistreated by her stepmother. or her adoptive mother. There's a prince whose father is dying from this disease that's going around, and there is a moon queen who basically wants to take over the earth. It's very interesting. I really enjoyed the Lunar Chronicles, and I highly recommend Cinder. Anyways, that is my top 5 Wednesday. Hope you enjoyed. Bye bye.